since this is the context of Orwell, and it is an evolutionary context. Fundamentally, we are shifting from the ego to the soul. Both ego-bound state of being, and as we make the transition into the deeper soul state, both levels, there is humility, there is strength, but qualitatively very, very different. For the ego, it is always self-centered, and from there it is looking at the world that is around, building relationships. And in that, there is a hierarchy. And the ego is acutely aware of the hierarchy. So anyone who is above, from ego's perspective, it will do its performance of humility. Or whether in Indian custom we'll see all the touching of the feet to sir, Ji, depending upon the hierarchy in which they are placed, social construct. And we can also see those who are below in the hierarchy of the particular ego, the way they treat, whether it is your housemaid, staff in the restaurant, whoever you feel like you can afford to dominate. And accordingly, the behavior modifies. And it is a form of performed humility and absence of humility according to the social structure. Every society has it. Every ego adapts to the structure and what it allows. Similarly, ego has a strength that is self-assertive, imposing itself or being imposed by others, or grouping together, bound by common interest or a common enemy out there. And it builds its strength, but it is with reference to someone out there and the framework of hierarchy, which is the social construct. And as we move from the ego to living at a deeper level, one thing that happens is the call that comes to the ego-bound soul who is lost in the absorption in the social construct. Slowly you're waking up through a series of random events, random coincidences. And you're beginning to sense there is something else asking you to look deeper or take a leap into a future that you're not able to comprehend. On one hand, there is clearly an invitation to take an action, yet you do not have the knowledge of where it is taking you. And therefore, you also don't have the strength to take that action. And you will go on delaying for a long time in spite of having the call, come this way, take this action. Because there is a lack of knowledge of where the action is going to lead you, what the future is holding for you. There is a first glimpse of humility where you are admitting that I do not know where this is leading me. And that's the first touch of a true humility, that is recognizing that my knowledge is limited, my understanding is limited, and yet there is something asking me to come forward and take action, leap into a future that is unpredictable, unimaginable, and a leap without return ticket, without safety belt. And then slowly, ego is beginning to trust and take small action. Otherwise, it is getting churned by life. Things start cracking up because the forces of evolution will enter, will churn, will crack the shell of your ego and force you out of the comfort zone, throw you into the chaos of life. And you're churned. Your relationships can break down, your health might break down, you may fail in your business, whatever it is. Or some line of interest that is so curious, it is so fascinating, you can't resist anymore. You begin to take action driven by the soul without necessarily knowing where it is leading, and you're beginning to surrender to a wisdom that is not of the ego. And that's where the beginning of that emergence of humility and coming in touch with the soul and trusting and taking action in alignment with it. And as you begin to take action, you begin to see there is a growing synchronicity, there is a presence of a grace that is guiding, and gradually you begin to admit there is a guidance, there is a wisdom that is gently nudging, asking you to come forward. Don't worry, you come, you come, you come. And you learn to surrender the ego, surrender its pride, surrender the social hierarchy, the social conventions, and begin to take authentic, true action. On one hand, mind is ignorant, and mind is admitting that I don't know. On the other side, the paradox is something in you clearly know that this is an action that I must take even if I'm not able to explain why I should take this action. And as you begin to take such steps, slowly a strength begins to arise. There is a line, beautiful line in Savitri where Sri Aurobindo says, surrender was his only strength. Where the ego is surrendering and you're surrendering to a greater wisdom, and you begin to feel there is even a force that is gently nudging you, pushing you to take the leap, take the action, and you begin to consciously communicate with that wisdom and its force, that light and that force, and you learn to open to it, surrender to it, and that is beginning to now drive you, and you're surrendering, and you increasingly recognize that it is not your knowledge, it's not your strength, it is something else that is beginning to act. And then the whole journey is about learning to discern between the ego that is struggling to let go of its past, its entire construct, and opening to an unknown, a future that is undefined, not clear, and yet a faith that is growing. And if you're sincere to the call, the guidance that is entering your life, and give yourself to it, slowly a strength begins to arise. As the strength is awakening, that will flow through four powers, and it will awaken as your Swabhava. That is wisdom, strength, harmony, perfection. The four pillars of the mother begins to emerge. And through that, your true nature, true Swabhava, your soul force finds its expression that will enable you to break through the limitations of perception, the resistance on the way, the social resistances, internal resistances, and you find you are held, you're carried forward, and there is a strength that is not yours. And that strength finds its finest expression when you become extremely passive and not even initiating any action, but become a pure transmission channel. A silent mind, a calm heart, a body that is at peace, nervous system that is at peace. So the force can act through peacefully, and there is a strength that is arising, and a spontaneous natural humility that shows that I am not the doer, It is being given to me. I'm surrendering to it. Something is leading me, something is guiding me. I can trust that. Let thy will be done. There we are making the transition from the ego to the soul's self-giving, self-consecration, a complete self-giving. And of course, rewards, all that are there, part of it, but I'm just limiting to that, just this shift that is happening, where it is the mind that recognizes that my knowledge is extremely limited. I do not really know. And yet there is a wisdom and a strength that is awakening from inside, that is reliable, absolutely reliable, and it builds strength, it builds peace, it builds clarity, it builds your quietude, a quiet strength, a soft strength, which is very flexible, open, and you're happy to always admit, yes, I made a mistake here. I'm ready to apologize and I'm ready to move on. You're like a baby who is stumbling your way through, and you feel more and more like a child who is newborn and wondering at this amazing journey. So welcome to the adventure with that. Thank you.